Christie Lynn Wilson was born on January 10, 1978, in San Jose, California, USA. She graduated from Gunderson High School and got her business degree from California State University, Chico. According to her mom, Deborah Wilson Boyd, and stepdad, Patrick Boyd, she was a standout athlete and student. After Christie graduated from college, she found a job she liked at a tech company near Sacramento. In her spare time, she enjoyed playing blackjack at a local casino, where she eventually met her boyfriend, Danny Burlando. As Christie's family and friends said, her relationship with Danny was quite harmonious. They seemed like a good couple who would have a bright future together. But their relationship started to deteriorate after they moved to Sacramento together. Christie often had bruises on her body, but she didn't want to discuss their origin. Apart from a troubled personal life, Christie had problems with work. Due to the high-tech crisis, she lost her job and had to return to her parents in San Jose. Eventually, she got a job offer in San Francisco and decided to start over. On October 4, 2005, Christie went to Sacramento to pick up the last of her belongings. But 2 days later, Danny Burlando called Christie's parents and reported that she had disappeared. He said he contacted all jails and hospitals and called all her friends before calling them. The police have also been notified of Christie Wilson's disappearance. According to Danny, Christie came to the apartment on October 4th. That night, he had dinner with his family, and Christie went to the Thunder Valley Casino. That was the last time he saw her. Danny's family didn't like Christie, so the fact that he went to a family dinner alone wasn't surprising. In turn, Christie's family did not like Danny either. This was due to the fact that sometimes Christie had bruises on her body, indicating that Danny had abused her. Although a stepfather to Christie, Patrick Boyd loved her like his own daughter, and when he found out about the domestic violence, he was furious. Patrick wanted to deal with Danny, but Christie's mother, Deborah, stopped him. Danny Burlando was 31 years old at the time. He used to work as a car salesman but soon lost his job. About a month before Christie disappeared, neighbors called the police after hearing her screaming loudly. When the police arrived, they found that Christie and Danny had had a fight, but there were no repercussions at the time because they quickly made up. So, obviously, Danny was the first person the detectives suspected after Christie disappeared. And the fact that he waited almost 48 hours before reporting his girlfriend missing to the police only reinforced those suspicions. What if he used this time to destroy all the evidence? But Burlando cooperated and allowed investigators to check his phone records, credit card activity, computer, apartment, and car. Although he was a suspect, there was no evidence of foul play on his part. He had an alibi, a family dinner. Before reporting Christie's disappearance to the police, he called her 78 times, but she didn't answer. Detectives interviewed Christie's friends and family and checked her phone and credit card activities. There has been no activity in her bank account since October 4th. Christie's parents and the police department organized a search involving dogs, volunteers, and a police helicopter. The family asked to report any information about her whereabouts. As Danny said, he was trying to find Christie and went to the Thunder Valley Casino, but the staff did not provide him with any valuable information. Still, Danny found Christie's car, which was still in the parking lot next to the casino. When investigators arrived at the casino, Christie's car was still there, but this finding raised more questions than it answered. There was no sign of a struggle or any other crime. Therefore, it was unclear whether Christie had left the casino, and if she had, why did she leave her car? Hoping to get answers, detectives requested CCTV footage inside and outside the casino. At the same time, the police took one more look at Christie and Danny's apartment, but it was unsuccessful. Christie's stepfather, Patrick, was also a police officer, and he organized a search of the bottom of a nearby river but never found anything. Investigators focused on Thunder Valley and used Christie's player's card to track her movements at the casino. The card revealed that she sat at a blackjack table around 11 p.m. As investigators suspected, Danny Burlando wasn't on any of the recordings, but there was another man with whom Christie was sitting at the table. They seemed to communicate with each other. When Christie won, this man congratulated her. When one of them lost money, they comforted each other. Christie spent about 6 hours in the casino. The camera also captured a moment when the man put his hand on Christie's shoulder. She had ups and downs that night. At first, luck was on her side, and she counted cards very well. However, later, she started losing. Christie became more and more uncontrollable and anxious. Having won too many drinks, she began to lose control of herself. At some point, the casino staff wanted her to leave. When a casino employee asked Christie to go outside and calm down, the black-haired man said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of this, beauty." Soon after, the camera recorded this man getting up and leaving the casino with Christie. During a visit to Thunder Valley, detectives learned that casino employees had found a mobile phone under a blackjack table. As it turned out, it was Christie's phone. Perhaps she didn't notice that she had lost it. It was an unfortunate development for the police. After all, they hoped to find Christie by tracing her phone's location. Further examination of the CCTV footage showed that Christie and her new acquaintance went to the parking lot. About 4 minutes later, a white car left the parking lot while Christie's vehicle stayed in place. The investigators believed Christie could have gone somewhere with an unknown man in his car. Now, the police needed to learn whether she did it of her own free will or if this man forced her into the car. Using players' card data, detectives identified the man at the blackjack table as Mario Flavio Garcia, who lived in Auburn. 53-year-old Mario was a family man. He had 2 sons, was married, and had a relatively successful career in IT. Investigators quickly discovered that the white car they saw on the CCTV footage belonged to Garcia. All this made him the main suspect in the case of the disappearance of Christie Wilson. On the other hand, Garcia seemed to be alone in the car when he left the parking lot. After leaving the casino, Christie never approached her vehicle. Garcia stayed in the parking lot for 3 minutes 41 seconds. Perhaps something happened between him and Christie during that time. Detectives delved into Garcia's life and learned he was a beloved community member and a football mentor. Notwithstanding all this, he had a dark side too. About 25 years ago, he got arrested for kidnapping his ex-girlfriend. Taking her to a secluded place, Garcia forced her into intimacy. Moreover, all this happened at gunpoint. As a result, the case got plea bargained down to assault with a deadly weapon. In other words, Garcia managed to get away with it. He made a deal with the prosecutor's office and got only 18 months of probation. But this was not the only case when Garcia was of interest to the police. A few years after the attack on his ex-girlfriend, Garcia was in a relationship with Lynette Smith. This relationship wasn't a fairy tale story either. In 1979, Garcia, Lynette, and her mother, Violet Davis, celebrated Christmas together. After dinner, the 3 of them got into Lynette's car. On that Christmas night, eyewitnesses reported to the police that a vehicle had fallen into the river and sank near Oakland Airport. Mario Garcia was the only survivor. He told police Lynette was driving, but detectives could not confirm who was behind the wheel. Violet Davis's body was in the car. However, it took them a week to find Lynette's body. Everyone believed it was an accident, and no one received any charges. After the investigators gathered all this information, they decided to talk to Garcia about Christie Wilson, but he claimed that he knew nothing about her disappearance. He said they left the casino together, politely said their goodbyes, and parted. Unfortunately, the CCTV footage could not confirm whether he was telling the truth because at that moment the camera turned in the other direction. According to Garcia, he went home after saying goodbye to Christie, but he lied. After examining the CCTV footage, the police knew he drove in the opposite direction from his house. Garcia told detectives he went straight home and fell asleep. At 8:30 a.m., he woke up and went to work. His wife refused to talk to the police, which meant the detectives could not confirm or deny this version. But when they studied Garcia's cell phone records, it became clear that his entire story was a lie. He didn't go home right after the casino. That morning, he called his wife at 7:51 a.m., and the cell tower that received a signal from his phone was far from his house. Mario also said that he came to work at 9 a.m., and yet his colleague said Garcia was late, appearing around 10 a.m. After talking to all of Garcia's colleagues, investigators learned that the day after Christie Wilson disappeared, Mario came to work with scratches on his arm and a bruise under one eye. As the main suspect said, he received them after falling from a tree he was pruning. The investigators did not believe a single word of it. Who prunes trees at night? Sounds like nonsense, right? The police invited a forensic expert to analyze Mario Garcia's wounds. An experienced expert noted that the scratches on the man's face and body did not correspond to injuries sustained when falling from a tree. There were 4 parallel scratches on his face, but that's not all. The 3 parallel scratches on Mario's left side of the chest were of particular interest. After all, while resisting, the right-handed person will use their right hand to leave traces or scratches on the opponent's left side of the chest, and Christie Wilson was right-handed. The police had reason to believe that Mario Garcia was involved in whatever happened to Christie, so they obtained a search warrant for his car, home, and computer. As a reminder, Garcia claimed he went home after saying goodbye to Christie in the parking lot, but as forensic investigators searched his car, they started realizing that Christie Wilson was most likely dead. The man managed to wash his car both inside and outside. He even threw the mat out of the trunk, and yet he failed to destroy all the evidence. At first, experts found a tiny, ordinary-looking spot on the car seat. After testing it, they discovered it was blood. Unfortunately, it wasn't clean enough to conduct a DNA analysis. Next, apart from 2 long hairs, the police found small splashes of blood on the back door and the trunk. After comparison, they knew these 2 hairs belonged to the missing Christie. Upon further testing, the police made another conclusion. The bloodstains contained the DNA of both Mario and Christie. This evidence refuted Mario's testimony that they parted in the parking lot. It all pointed to a fight between Garcia and Christie. After studying the history of his search queries, detectives learned he was searching for forensic toxicological data. He also used the website that described the drugs one can slip into drinks on a date. Investigators assumed that Christie was a random victim. They sat at the same table, and Garcia could have slipped something into her alcoholic beverages. But the police needed to find Christie to prove it. They conducted a large-scale search for Christie's body around Garcia's 5-acre property. However, they couldn't find any new clues. Despite the absence of Christie's body, the police arrested Mario Garcia. He was charged with kidnapping and taking the life of Christie Wilson. The man continued to insist on his innocence, even though all the evidence said otherwise. The trial began on September 11, 2006. Prosecutors presented convincing evidence stating that Garcia met Christie at the blackjack table, left the casino with her, attacked her, took her life, and hid her body. At the trial, Garcia stated the following: "Why is it that the DNA on the door, claimed to be of Christie Wilson, was the only thing that was found? Why is it that the DNA from my sons, my wife, and other people that were in the car were not found? I cleaned everybody else's DNA except Christie Wilson. That's the only thing they found. So how did it get there?" He wanted to convince the jury that the police had planted evidence in his car. I suppose that at this hearing I'm supposed to ask for mercy, for forgiveness, and to show remorse. However, I will not do such thing. "I did not kill Christie Wilson. I am innocent," Garcia said. After hearing both sides, the jury found Mario Garcia guilty. On January 11, 2007, the court sentenced him to 59 years to life. But the story doesn't end here. Christie's family hoped that after the sentencing, Garcia would confess where he hid the body, but he refused to discuss it. As years passed, Christie's family tried to get on with their lives, which could no longer be the same after such a heartbreaking ordeal. And the fact that Mario Garcia filed one appeal after another only aggravated the situation. All his attempts to appeal the verdict were unsuccessful, but it prevented Christie's family from living their lives. And yet Garcia didn't want to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Therefore, he changed tactics. In 2018, he told Christie's family that he wanted an early release from prison in exchange for information about the body's whereabouts. Deborah Boyd considered negotiating with him, but eventually abandoned the idea. "This would be such a disgrace," she said. "He will not use my daughter's body as a bargaining chip." Police appealed to Garcia's family for help. They knew that Jean Garcia divorced Mario after he went to prison. Eventually, she stopped believing Garcia and believed her ex-husband had something to do with the disappearance and death of Christie Wilson. Investigators also contacted Garcia's sons, Chris and Andy, asking them to recall any details of the days when Christie disappeared and the days leading up to their father's arrest. The police wanted to know about Mario's behavior those days. Perhaps there were some changes. Mario's son, Chris, remembered that he had an important football game. He saw his dad working on a tractor. It was kind of frantically. He had a crazed look in his eyes as he was working around the property. Chris wanted his father to attend his game, but Mario said, "I'm not going," and it was a very firm, "I'm not going." Chris found that out of character for Mario. Investigators asked Chris to go with them to his childhood home, which the family lost in 2007. Remembering the details of that day, Chris showed them where he saw his father working on a tractor. It was next to a detached garage along the road, just 100 yards from Garcia's house. Mario has done a great job of making the landscape look like it matches the terrain. After all, he had enough time to do this. Mario had 4 or 5 days to cover his tracks. The law enforcement officers searched Garcia's property using police dogs in 2005, but none of them could find anything at that time. Now, the investigators have decided to act differently. In August 2020, they contacted a company specializing in ground-penetrating radars. The technicians scanned almost all 5 acres of land that belonged to Mario Garcia and accurately identified 8 places where there were voids or pockets under the surface. The first 2 holes produced nothing. The third place pointed out by experts was the one where Mario Garcia was digging with a tractor, and it was there that the police found the skeleton. The examination left no doubt they found the remains of Christie Wilson 15 years after her disappearance. Although the exact cause of her death remained unknown, the experts concluded she had a broken arm and nose. The investigators working on this case for 15 years went to Arizona to personally inform Deborah that they had found her daughter. It was both sad and joyful news for Christie's family. Now they finally had the opportunity to say goodbye to their daughter. At a press conference in Auburn with the Wilson family and District Attorney Morgan Geer, Placer County Sheriff Devin Bell announced the finding, which he said was made without Garcia's assistance. He said the now 67-year-old is a convicted murderer who refused to cooperate, who would not supply any information to contribute to closure for the family, and is exactly where he needs to be: prison. Wilson's mother, Deborah Boyd, said the announcement would mark a day of peace for their family. "It's a peace we haven't had, and we are so happy to finally be able to close this chapter of torment and be able to move forward with great thanksgiving," she said. "Today is a day that absolutely reflects some of the greatest level of perseverance in police work that a victim's family could ever ask for." Mario Garcia died of pneumonia on December 24, 2020. Christie's family said his death provided them tremendous peace. And although Christie's remains were found on a property he owned in 2005, Garcia never pleaded guilty.